included in all the fun premium content we got over there. What sport you ever choose to get into, we've got you covered with the best premium content there. Woo Fantasy promo code gets you involved there. Masters Week.
You and I were doing lineups earlier.
Yeah, we got our lineups in for Masters Week. So yeah, I did tweet that out just a couple of days ago. If you're looking to get involved in some of the money available for Masters Week, promo code Woo Fantasy, rotoballer.com. We've got you set up, get your lineup set for the Masters. But as always, I'm joined here Woo on a Wednesday.
Woo Wednesday
Co-host here, Nick Heffley. How are we doing, sir? Ready to get some podcasting going?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of weird. I know, the last couple of years we've been able to do a midweek podcast, but with my new little one there, that's far fetched during the week. But the wife and little one are gone out to Denver here, so Wednesday it is.
Yeah, it's been a little difficult getting some of the midweek stuff done because family things and whatnot and stuff like that. But such is life as a parent. I've been there before.
Do you know how difficult it is with the number of leagues that I'm in to successfully pick players up off the wire?
Yeah, I was going to say the waivers are always traumatic.
Holy crap!
Well, I mean,
if I don't get some stuff done during the day during working hours, there's no way I'm getting it done at night. You basically got one day. Monday night football ends. You got Tuesday. Some of our waivers run butt early in the morning on Wednesday. If you don't get it in, you don't get it in. So.
No, I mean, it's even worse for me, too, because, the long-standing bowling league that I'm involved in on Tuesday nights that you used to be a part of before you moved away. Yeah, I mean, I'm at the bowling alley until 10:30 some weeks, and it's hard to go in and start getting the process of getting the waivers set up, before the next hour or two before I need to go to bed and get ready for the day job the next day. So
tough stuff. Love our leagues that have a Thursday waiver.
Exactly.
Like the leagues that I run.
Yeah, some of the older leagues that we've been involved in. So yeah. So we're heading into week 10. We're double digits.
Wow.
Yeah, think about that. We're at double digits already.
4 weeks from playoff time in most leagues.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast the fantasy season has flown by. So now you're kind of getting in a point where you're getting ready for the playoff run. I mean, so we're here to help. That's what we're putting this out there for, to help everybody out. Going to get everybody ready for these week 10 lineups. Hopefully get you set up for some wins. If you need them, we're here to help. If you're looking for a bye, we're here to help. Or if you're just riding it out, getting ready for the end of the season, you've had a tough go of it, injuries have hit you, we're here to help nonetheless. So, how have you viewed it? I mean, this will be, completed 9 weeks. We're in week 10. How is the season overall? How have you viewed that at this point in time?
I mean, it's been a tough year. I mean, there's been a lot of injuries. I think you and I were talking about one of our long-standing leagues that you were wanting to get a good number 2 running back. There's not a lot of number 2 running back, type guys out there right now. A lot of them are injured. A lot of RBBCs out there that, it's tough to get guys, not to mention outside of Kelsey and Kittle before he got hurt. Who the hell is producing at tight end? Literally nobody. It is rough out there. I had Zach Ertz in leagues, and I thought he was just going to be getting monster targets all year. Nothing. No. Although you got to admit, I was right on Darren Waller. You got to admit.
You were. That's what I was just a part of. I was just a part of a podcast that the Roto Surgeon from Rotoballer, Kev, does. It'll be out tomorrow over on rotoballer.com. So be sure to check that out. We were kind of discussing things a little bit along the lines of some tight ends. And, I mentioned on the show, if you don't have Travis Kelce, if you don't have Darren Waller, and even to an extent, if you don't have TJ Hawkinson, I mean, you're at that point in time, you're grasping at straws and really streaming position week in and week out, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at a guy that you were on all year long, Hayden Hurst. Hasn't had a great year by any stretch of the imagination. You put him last year, he's probably 10 or 11 at tight end. He's number 5 in a lot of leagues right now because he's been consistent catching 5 or 6 balls a game, not necessarily getting in the end zone, but he's
Yeah.
consistent on his numbers. So
I had him tight end 6 coming into the season. I was one of the highest in the industry on Hayden Hurst coming into the year. So health and consistency, I mean, he's been there on the field. So that's getting you a high ranking when it comes to fantasy football this year. That's the biggest thing we're seeing at this point in time.
But I think it's been tough. I think for our followers and our listeners out there, I think one thing, if you listen to us during the pre-draft process, it was funny. Right before we got on, I was going back and looking at some of our drafts there, and we were absolutely hitting on running backs early because we knew you go back and you look in rounds 5 through 12. There's not a lot of running backs that were out there that have produced much of anything. So if you weren't hitting running back early like we suggested, you probably have not had a good year. So
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we're seeing it all through the process of the season so far. Running back has been really, really important. You needed the depth. I mean, injuries have really hit that position hard. You know, we're losing Christian McCaffrey yet again. So the Mike Davis owners rejoice, but that'll be something we'll talk about once we break down games. But yeah, it's been a war of attrition when you're at the running back position this year. If you go back to the last week, week 9, you had 2 running backs that finished with above 17 fantasy points last week, and that was Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey. Outside of that, everybody else was bunched in that 17-point below a range, and it was just odd that the lack of production that we saw last week. It was a big week for quarterbacks and wide receivers. Maybe we bucked the trend and it changes a little bit this week, and we see a little bit more run-heavy game plan. So, but who knows?
I have no idea what happened last week. I mean, there were so many smash spots for lower tier running backs to be able to just hit, and they didn't. Like Justin Jackson, thank God he did not, because I was going against him in some leagues and was barely winning. But I'm shocked at that. So
yeah, that was a rough one.
Chase Edmonds, completely shocked that he did not do more than
got the touches, but did not produce with the touches that he got. That was the wild thing when it came to Chase Edmonds last week. So now you're already looking at, Kenyon Drake's back in the fold and has done a little bit of practicing this week. So that's something to monitor as the weeks go, the week plays out. And here it is, Wednesday. It's first day of practices for a lot of these teams. That we'll tackle that as we start to break down these games too. But we want to, as we normally do with the Woo Fantasy Podcast, we want to get to some of your questions. We already have a few that are rolling in. Emilio, a guy that usually is a frequent question answer asker on the show.
Emilio
wants
Emilio
to know.
Talking on Twitter earlier in the week there. So hopefully Emilio got the trade that he was looking for there.
Yes, he's wanting to know Jonathan Taylor or J.D. McKissick in a standard scoring format this week. What do you think here between those two?
Unless it's a PPR league, I'm not a J.D. McKissick fan. Unless now you've seen news a little bit later on this afternoon that Antonio Gibson was held out of practice. So if that's going to be the case, I mean, that's a tough call to make with Jonathan Taylor playing tomorrow night and McKissick going this weekend. Taylor would be my guy in a normal situation, but I think if we really got to hear the news about Antonio Gibson, if he's going to be practicing, my guess is he plays.
Yeah.
So I would probably tend to go Jonathan Taylor in this matchup.
Yeah, for me, I will tend to agree. The matchup is good for McKissick, and you're going to get at least some targets out of him. And Antonio Gibson, I think, is in a spot to really dominate from the rushing perspective in the matchup. So that limits a little bit of the ceiling, the production that you could see from J.D. McKissick. So for me, Jonathan Taylor, even though we're looking at that crazy 3-headed split that we don't know how to work it, the coaching staff is saying all the right things when it comes to Jonathan Taylor leading in the matchup. They want to give him more touches late in game. So things are really trending more in a productive effort for Jonathan Taylor in the matchup against the Titans. Titans are a team that really have been kind of subpar against opposing running backs throughout the season. So for me, I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor there. And Emilio did say that he's working on the trade currently. So
good man. Good man.
Here we go. Another one from Connor Fogelman wanting to know, come playoff time, how important is Kelsey? And if you're a fantasy owner preparing, do you overpay to acquire a Travis Kelce right now?
Look, I mean, if you've got quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers out there that you can't even start these guys and they're starter worthy, I think you overpay. I mean, if you're pretty weak at tight end, I mean, just like we were talking earlier, I mean, Kelsey's a guy. If you got a willing Kelsey owner, that could be a smash spot when it comes to playoff time. It could be the kind of move that wins your league. So if you've got the depth and you're not going to get hurt by trading your depth off, make sure, if you start 2 running backs, make sure you got 3 good running backs. Don't trade off your 3rd guy and get screwed by somebody getting hurt or getting COVID and you're getting screwed. So as long as you got that in place, like I've got a league where I've got Kyler Murray and granted Big Ben who, has COVID, but I mean, it's one of those things. I'm trying to trade Big Ben off. I can't, Kyler's past his bye week. I'm fucked anyway if Kyler goes down. So it's time to trade Big Ben off to go get some value. So same thing applies here. Make sure you got the depth. You got the depth. Freaking go for it. That's the kind of move that'll win you a championship.
Yeah, Woo! Definitely. I mean, that's the thing. You do want to, if you can trade from your depth, go ahead and go grab him. That's something you want to definitely do there. So go acquire Travis Kelce if you can make it happen. We sign off on that trade. Just don't kill yourself at other positions to do so. But Darkness 20 here, he has a question. Do you want to drop Singletary already in a standard 12-team format? Are you ready to pull the trigger and drop Devin Singletary with the way that Zach Moss has been performing here in recent weeks?
What was that? Oh, sorry. I was listening to the trash can to see what it was telling me there. It depends on who's out there. I think is the easy answer. I mean, you're not dropping Devin Singletary for a Ryan Nall or something like that. So
for instance, are you going to make up say Justin Jackson misses this week again? Your position to where you can pick up Kalen Ballage for a 1-week play. Are you going to drop Devin Singletary for a 1-week insurance policy like a Kalen Ballage?
It depends on where you're at in your league standings. If you're in buy position. And you're building, you don't need a 1-week filler guy that's going to rest on your bench there. If you're in a spot where you need a win this week, you got to go pick up Kalen Ballage and somebody to that effect. If they have a chance to start, this is crunch time. Next week is not guaranteed. You got to get a win this week. So depending on where you're at, if you're not trending toward a bye and if you're solidly in the playoffs, I don't make that move.
No,
because Jackson will be back. Singletary is the kind of guy who, granted, he didn't even do really well when Zach Moss was in there, but he's gonna get carries. So I think it depends on who's on the wire. But if you can get somebody that's going to start week in, week out, like I had a league to where somebody dropped Myles Gaskin, who should be back in 3 weeks. If you're dropping him for somebody like Gaskin, who's going to be the number 1 when he comes back, make that move. If not, keep Singletary on your roster.
Yeah, that's the thing with that. I mean, if you're 5-4, 4-5, and you're shooting for a playoff berth and you need to win this week, then go ahead. You can make the move and for the policy of a guy that's going to give you points this week, because obviously, Devin Singletary is going to be kind of a low floor play. But he has some upside in that offense. That is a run heavy offense. They're going to utilize him. He just does not have the upside to score from inside the red zone. That seems
especially
to be
in the standard league. It's tough.
Yeah, it is. It's tough because he's not going to be the touchdown scorer there. That falls on the shoulders of Josh Allen and Zach Moss. So for me, I'm going to probably pull the trigger. If you've got a guy, even if it's a different position, say wide receiver, and you're trying to fill up depth at a wide receiver position. If you have a guy that you're more confident in, go ahead and pull the trigger, because it is standard format. There's a little bit less of an upside with 17 Singletary in that standard format. So going into the next one, part 2 of questions here from Darkness. Trading Robert Woods for Claypool and Deshaun Watson. Would you trade Robert Woods for Claypool and Deshaun Watson? He has Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, and Mike Williams currently.
It's in still standard league. I'm assuming this is the same league there. Let's
Possibly,
see.
Yes.
Hold on. Let's consult. I'm probably making the trade.
Jared Lunow's sending in messages to Nick here.
I'm probably going to make the deal. I'm assuming if you're trading for Deshaun Watson, he's going to probably go into your starting quarterback spot. Michael Thomas should kill the rest of the year. Cooks is having a good, and then you're getting double points with Watson and Cooks there. So assuming you got a crappy quarterback that Watson would go on the starting line, I make that move. I think Woods is good and probably if you can wait a week, because I think Woods may have a good week against Seattle. We'll get into that here in just a little bit. But
Yep.
Claypool's a little more up and down. But if you said Woods for Deshaun Watson, I would do the deal. Claypool's just being a throw-in that could start over Mike Williams there. It's a deal I would make.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'd probably pull the trigger on that deal because getting a quarterback this late in the year that's bringing you top 5 numbers probably week in and week out, because that's what we've seen with Watson since the firing of Bill O'Brien. Yeah, he's been a steady producer at that QB1 position, top 5. So the upside's there. I'd pull that trigger. Like you mentioned, the double points of Brandon Cooks. I'm very enticed by that because we've seen Brandon Cooks just turn around his season over the last 4 weeks. So,
well, the other thing too, in a standard league, you got to have a good quarterback. If you don't, you will not do anything. So if you don't, you definitely need that quarterback. So assuming you have somebody worse than him, make the deal, and then try to trade your backup quarterback, whoever that is, if they're decent, and go grab another running back or wide receiver for the run. Actually, great move. Trade Singletary and whoever your quarterback is now, and go get you another running back.
There you go.
Trade him to the Zach Moss owner. That's the move to make.
Try to solidify that backfield for another owner, giving them that piece. I've tried to do that with Mike Davis for weeks on end. Maybe you have a little bit better luck with Singletary to the Zach Moss owner. So, speaking of running backs, the industry AA is wanting to know the confidence level that we have in Miles Sanders as being a top 10 running back for the remainder of the season.
I mean, look at the schedule of what they got to go up against in the East there. I mean, it's pretty – I mean, his biggest question is the health. If he's on the field, I especially with the way some of these running backs are performing, absolutely he's a top 10 running back.
Yeah, for me, I'm all for that. I mean, I'm a Miles Sanders owner in multiple leagues. So I'm definitely buying in. I think coming back from the bye, he's fully healthy. We saw that he's practicing today, so we're in good shape there. I mean, that offense is starting to get really healthy, really quick. Things are going to start to turn around for him. Alshon's practicing. Yeah. So I think they're going to pull, they're going to pull all the chains off and let everybody do their work. And so for me, I'm very confident in Miles Sanders, but just look at the position as a whole. I mean, who are you going to rely on to fill that need as a top 10 running back outside of a name like Miles Sanders that can do it from both sides of the ball, whether it's rushing or pass catching out of the backfield? So, I'm definitely all for that. So next question jumping in, Vito wants to know, what do you think about Kalen Ballage in the Chargers situation? This is an interesting topic that we're seeing right now as the week plays out. Anthony Lynn has already stated today, Justin Jackson will not practice this week. They're going to let him rest. So that opens the door for Kalen Ballage in the revenge game against the Dolphins. So that one, for me, it's a situation to monitor. It just depends on what you hear come Sunday. You're probably going to have to pull the trigger to pick up Ballage if he's not on your roster already. You're going to have to do that now and just have him there as a stash. But how do you feel about that? Let's say Justin Jackson does not play. Kalen Ballage in that matchup against the Dolphins, who are a bottom 7 team against opposing running backs in fantasy scoring. So do you think that that's set up for a prime situation to start him this week?
I'll put it like this. Scott Fishbowl, I wound up picking up Kalen Ballage just on the off chance that that is the situation. I mean, this is the kind of time, again, just like we had mentioned the time before, to the guy, know where you're at. If you're fighting for a spot, I mean, Kalen Ballage is a prime start opportunity. I don't know that he's anything better than a number 2 guy with a little bit of upside. I think what you got last week out of him is probably his ceiling, because you got Pope coming back potentially this week as well. Mix up with Josh Kelly. You got some options, but I mean, he's a 1-week guy. I mean, you've seen I've been big on Kalen Ballage in the past, and he has disappointed time and time again. So
Kalen Garbage, as he's affectionately referred to.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. If Jackson's out, I'm playing him. It's not a great start depending on who you've got. But if you got a bye or injury going on, I mean, you're forced to. I'd rather play him than a lot of other guys.
Yeah, he's you're going to get a split backfield at best. Because Josh Kelly, no matter who is the other back in that backfield, continues to get at least 50% of the snaps in that backfield. So we saw it last week. Ballage got 39% of the snaps in that backfield, but outproduced Josh Kelly from a point standpoint. So, if you're in a situation you need to play the guy like a Balaj this week, it all depends on Justin Jackson's status. So for me, I'm probably going to slide him into the flex position, and hopefully he can produce in a what should be a positive game situation for him against the Dolphins there. So
don't go spending a lot of your fab on him. I mean, he's gonna be a 1 to 2 week guy. Max,
and most
injuries kind of come in.
Depends on the league that you're in. You're probably plucking him straight off the wire, anyways. At this point, so one of my faves here, Fantasy Junkie 24, has a half-point PPR question. Assuming all the running backs start, Kenyon Drake, who's practicing, Matt Breida, haven't seen him practice yet. I think he was out today. Antonio Brown or Malcolm Brown. I'm assuming we're going to need one out of these 4 names. Who would you go with here?
That's tough. I mean, you got to assume Henderson's not playing and they start. So, I mean, if all of them are starting, just like he mentioned there, half-point PPR, I would. Man, that is tough. I can see why you message in there, Fantasy Junkie 24. Let me go look at matchups here real quick. Hang on. Okay. Drake at home, Breida at home, Malcolm Brown at home, Antonio Brown. I didn't really like him last week, and I didn't like him last week. I think I called Antonio Brown 3 for 30 pretty exactly.
Fairly close to it, yeah.
Fairly close. If Henderson is out, I'm probably starting Malcolm Brown among these guys. Drake's a little gimpy. Breida's a little gimpy. Malcolm Brown is healthy. For me, it comes down to the Browns. What can which of these Browns do for you?
That's so stupid.
Probably
God.
Much, but probably not much. But in the end, I'm probably going Malcolm Brown over Antonio, just because again, I just don't think that Antonio Brown is back to where I'm starting him on a week-to-week basis. So half-point PPR, yeah.
You popped me with that one. That was a good one. What can the Browns do for you? Holy shit.
I'm going Malcolm Brown. If all things are equal, if all these guys are starting there, again, starting with Henderson out. If Henderson's in, I'm not starting Brown. I'd go one of the Browns. I'd go Antonio probably.
If all are considered healthy and playing, I'm going to start Drake as much as I don't want to.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's.
I figure it's a 50-50 matchup there with him and Evans.
Well, even the split, though, I think he has a better chance to score given the offense and the way that the game is going to unfold. I mean, Buffalo's defense, they average, I think it's 16 points per game that they allow to opposing running backs. So they're kind of middle of the pack, but they don't allow much as far as receptions to opposing running backs. I think they allow only 7.5 when it comes to 11 receptions to opposing running backs. So for me, I like Drake there because I think that there's more guaranteed touches out of the other options you have there. I mean, unless Breida is fully healthy and he's the starter. That's the only other caveat that I have is if Breida is fully healthy, that's what we were hoping for last week. He would have been the play for the Dolphins, but then we saw that there was a split in that backfield with a bunch of mess there as well. So
yeah. I told you my monitor Jordan Howard. Blech.
Yeah, that's just a monitor the situation when it comes to that. See how the week plays out. For me, I'm at this point in time, I'm going to start Drake. But if Breida looks like he's fully healthy and ready to go, I would start Breida over the other options here.
And hey, too, with you having, I mean, these are some good options. I mean, this is the exact kind of depth that we're talking about that you need to trade one of these guys off.
Sure.
You need to. I would definitely trade one or two of these guys off because you're trying to decide on flex guys like this every week. I bet you there's teams in the league that are scrambling to be able to start guys like this every week. So hopefully for you, Breida or Brown has a good week, and it's time to trade those guys off.
Sure. Adding on to the other question we were talking about with the Balaj for Vito, he chimed back in. He's actually stashing. This is a good one for you. He's stashing Cordero Patterson right now because of the David Montgomery situation. Would you rather have Montgomery or Kalen Balaj?
I'd rather have Montgomery.
No.
Vito,
I mean, would you rather have Cordero Patterson or Kalen Ballage?
Kalen Ballage.
Yeah,
okay.
that's what easily.
All right,
yeah.
Vito. Just in case you hadn't followed us for a while, we're Tennessee Vols fans here. I've been a big Cordero Patterson fan forever.
Yeah.
He is a gimmick guy. He will never be fantasy worthy ever. As much as I would love for him to be that, especially in the Bears offense, it's going to be Ryan. Ryan Nall is the guy that you want, not Cordero Patterson. He's a gimmick guy. Will not get the ball.
No, he's not going to get it with.
He'll be a Taysom Hill kind of a guy. If he scores, it's going to be you're never going to predict the week.
No,
Ryan Nall is the better guy to be able to stash if you're doing that. Kalen Ballage is not a good. If you're stashing somebody, unless you're going to get him and deal him this week, if he's going to start, that's the move to make there.
We'll get into a couple more questions before we jump into the Woos and Boos, our famous Woos and Boos segment for the weeks. But we got Tua is our savior. Wants to know.
I read it. Tua sour savior.
No. So now he's wanting to know half point PPR. Do you start Jonathan Taylor or do you start Philip Lindsay this week?
We're going to start Philip Lindsay. Halfway. Here's why. I am a formerly proud Melvin Gordon owner. I've still got Melvin Gordon. I'm just not proud of it anymore. Philip Lindsay has been getting a lot more touches in this offense. Not to mention, you would think Melvin Gordon's a guy that would be getting receptions like late in the game this last week. He wasn't getting anything.
None.
So I'm wondering if the Broncos brass is just becoming tired of him. He had the DUI early in the year, so I don't know if it's just a 50-50 match. I mean, Lindsay has looked better when he's touched the ball. I still don't know at the beginning of the year why they brought in anybody to compete with Philip Lindsay as good as he was. So, but especially this week, we were saying Taylor earlier with the question he had, but I don't necessarily like starting Jonathan Taylor this week. Philip Lindsay's in a pretty good spot. I think they're going against the Raiders this week, so that would be my choice.
Yeah, they're bottom 4. The Raiders are in points allowed to opposing running backs, giving up 29.8 fantasy points per game right now. So
0.8.
Yeah, 0.8. So there's plenty of fantasy goodness to go around for both of those running backs for the Denver Broncos this week, whether it be Melvin Gordon or Philip Lindsay. Like you mentioned, Philip Lindsay's starting to kind of chip away a little bit at that backfield and see a little bit more in terms of touches. So for me, I'm actually going to play Philip Lindsay over Jonathan Taylor. I hate to say that just because of most of our perceived thoughts on Jonathan Taylor. But he's just not getting the job done right now, and the work's not there. I think Philip Lindsay gets into the end zone this week for sure.
I mean, take Taylor's touchdown away from last week. His numbers sucked.
Stinks, yeah. It's just bad. It's been bad lately.
He should be getting the ball. Like last week was a great spot for him to hopefully smash, and he didn't. Like the only league that I've got Jonathan Taylor that I'm starting him in this week is the league where we get 1 point for every 5 yards rushing. So
yeah.
50 yards is 10 points. Like that's the only kind of league that I would consider starting him in, unless your options are just crap.
Now dialing it back into the earlier question for the industry, he has Michael Thomas, Terry McLaurin, Will Fuller, Claypool, Mike Williams at receiver. If he offers Noah Fant and Terry McLaurin for Travis Kelce, that seems like a nice deal, right?
Yeah, for the industry, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If I'm the Kelce owner, there's no way I take that. But you got Albert Okwuegbunam.
Oh wow! Yeah, he's actually out this week. So
he's out for the year. Yeah. So Fant is gonna be the guy. You may, depending on you definitely want to check your league rules and see when you can make a deal. But hopefully Fant can produce. If I'm the Kelce owner, there's no way I make that deal. No way. But hopefully he's at a spot to where you might be able to offer a draft pick or something like that. But that's probably what I would do and feel comfortable with. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way there. So just to we'll get a couple more real quick.
Why don't you tell everybody the story real quick that you told me about going to pick up your daughter at school before we get too deep into this?
Yeah. So I go pick up my daughter from school today. I've been off from my day job the earlier parts of this week, so I went to get her from school today. She's an 8th grader, 13-year-old. Walk into the office to say, "Hey, here to pick up my daughter." There's two young kids in there, and one of them's like, "Oh, hey, hey, that's Danny's father. And I said, yeah, that's me, guys. And then one of the little kids goes, hey, we watch your podcast. And I said, yeah,
You should have
yeah.
asked him to give you a woo. Give me a
13
woo, kid.
Yeah, for real. 13-year-old kids that play basketball at their local elementary school are watching this podcast and probably playing fantasy football because that's what we were doing at that age, 13 and 14-year-old. That's when we got started. So yeah, we're fantasy giants among
What's the middle
eighth
school?
grade. Bargerton.
Sure.
We're fantasy giants among 13-year-olds out there. We're hitting the key demos here, people.
That's right.
So,
Maybe we should have a waiver thing put up when you have to join the live room here.
yeah, watch. Yeah, because the language we don't really watch the language. But jumping back in, Connor Fogelman wants to know stash or sell Austin Eckler at this point in time.
I was just looking at.
Won't be back until December.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Depends on what you can get for him, and it depends on your spot. I mean, obviously, if you're stashing him, you got to make sure you're making the playoffs.
Obviously,
the one league that I have him in, we can't make trades. But if I did have him in a league, to where I could make trades, it depends on where I'm at. If I'm top 3 seeds right now, I stash. I hang on. If I'm fighting for a playoff spot, I try to sell him and get what I can to be able to make sure I make the playoffs. He's not going to do you any good if you're not going to make the playoffs. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends, like what you mentioned, it just depends on where you're at in your league currently. So if you're in a situation, if you're fighting for the playoffs, obviously you've made some good pickups along the way that you're still competitive week in and week out, and Eckler sitting there on your bench, continue to hold him. Because if you're going to make the playoffs and here comes, week 13, week 14, he's finally back in the lineup for the Chargers, they're going to give him the ball. He's going to get the work. And he's going to be –
nobody there's done anything to warrant them keeping the spot. So,
I mean, hang on to him. And for me, I mean, once he comes back in, he's your RB2 flex option, from that point forward. So definitely hold on to the guy. We'll jump back in here. Kirk McLaren wanting to know Duke Johnson – if David Johnson is out, or DeAndre Swift this weekend.
This is gonna be a D Swift matchup for me. I just have a feeling with Duke Johnson, even though he scored last week. Oh, I'm sorry. Woo, Johnson.
No, I'm gonna throw this in real quick because Fogelman jumped back in and says his Dodgers hat would look great on you right now, Nick.
Get the fuck off our podcast.
Fogelman. Yeah,
get off, Fogelman.
Hit him with it, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I'm going Swift. Duke Johnson's good. Look, he's probably going to be the main guy, but I just can't. I mean, Duke Johnson's never been a guy that he's going to take the entire load. He does have a little bit of a tough matchup in Cleveland this week. Swift has been doing halfway decent. I mean, it's a tough call either way, but quit laughing. Swift is the answer.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I do like the upside of DeAndre Swift's matchup this weekend. Duke Johnson, it's a revenge game if David Johnson's out, going back to play the Cleveland Browns if you want to use the narrative for that. So we'll see how that plays out. But, I mean, Duke Johnson, you know what he can't do as a runner. We've seen it. What he offers is as a pass catcher. But they just don't really utilize him that well, even if he does get an increase in touches. So for me, I like DeAndre Swift. Sooner or later, it's going to click with that coaching staff for the Lions that he's the best option that they've got. And that he needs to be out there on the field taking more of an ownership of that backfield. So could be this week, but I like him a little bit better over Duke Johnson if David Johnson's out. So I agree with you there. And then one of our other old-timers here, Alabama football, more upside this weekend. Is it Antonio Gibson or Chase Edmonds?
Well, by the way, hold on. Let's see. This A does not have the mullet on the top, just to make everybody have a difference of what a Braves A and an Alabama A is. No mullet.
That's true.
Antonio Gibson here for sure. I mean, Gibson's in a great spot. If he's healthy, that's the play.
Yeah.
Drake is back in practicing. You would assume he at least gets some time on the field, which granted, Edmonds has actually done better when Drake has been in. So, you saw last week. I mean, Edmonds was in a great spot. So I had him in every FanDuel, and granted, I didn't win very much FanDuel money last week. So Gibson's in a great spot, especially in Detroit, where you got no weather to be able to worry about.
Yeah.
It's really the injury news is really your question there. So Gibson, if everybody's healthy, Gibson.
Yeah, it's a big opportunity game for Antonio Gibson here. I think he has the better performance between the two, even though Chase Edmonds, like you mentioned, is the more efficient play whenever Kenyon Drake is in that backfield as well. So last one, we're going to jump into the Week 10 slate, and boop, right here. Here we go. Should I start Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson this weekend here? That's a good call because I think I've got them. Let me look at my rankings real quick. I think I've got them side by side between the two, but who do you have between those two?
That's a tough call. The only thing you worry about with Aaron Rodgers, the way he's been doing, is he's likely to regress one of these weeks. Now, I don't know if it's going to come against the Jaguars, but you figure they may run the ball a little bit this week. I feel like Deshaun's going to be down. Do we know what the weather's like in Cleveland there? We have any predictions of weather, snow?
Nothing I've seen yet.
That's going to be a big question for me because, you got some of this weather I know coming up through the south going north up there. So I don't know what the weather's looking like. If we got any weather, I'm absolutely going Aaron Rodgers. And honestly, I'm probably if there's no weather, I'll probably go Watson just because I feel like Rodgers is going to regress. He's had 2 amazing weeks here. So in that case, no weather in Cleveland, I'm going Watson. Otherwise, go Aaron Rodgers.
I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers in the matchup. Jaguars are 3rd in points allowed to fantasy quarterbacks throughout the year right now. So I think that's a situation you want to attack Aaron Rodgers. Neither are bad options. I think it ties back into some of the other discussions we've had leading up to this point in this podcast. You're strong at quarterback. There has to be another team in your league that is weak at quarterback. Trade one of these guys. Trade them.
Pick up because the Packers. I don't think the Packers had their bye yet. I think they've had their bye, right?
They've had their bye, yeah.
Yeah, definitely trade off Watson. Or I don't know. You got to have double points in there. I'm assuming with one of these guys, trade them off. You're better off picking a Phillip Rivers up off the wire there. And upgrading significantly, I'm sure, at running back, wide receiver, well, who knows, tight end. But
yeah.
Or you could be like the other guy and try to trade Watson maybe for Travis Kelce there.
You could. You get something back. But one of those two guys is going to be highly enough valuable. You're going to get a good haul back in return. So that's what I would do. I would finagle them. Your trade deadline in your league's obviously coming up, whether it be this week, next week, who knows. Try to see what you can do. Float one of those names out there.
Yeah. Brandon and I made a deal the other day, by the way.
Obviously, yeah.
Were you being serious that you didn't know it was me?
No, I was
accepted that.
I was absolutely fucking pulling your chain.
Okay, I wouldn't doubt if you. We've tried to trade literally. Well, I should say I've offered Brandon fair trades in most of our leagues that we do, but he finally accepted it. So what deal do we do the other day, B?
This is a keeper league that we're in. We only keep 4. There's no round value or anything like that. You just you hold on to 4 names each year. I traded away the rights to Zach Moss for Chase Claypool straight up. I had some depth at running back, not a lot of great running backs, but I had plenty of running backs that I can switch in and out each and every week. And he was the same at wide receiver, with Claypool being a guy that he has kind of on the fringe of his lineup each and every week, where he could be a guy that I could be starting each and every week. So
and I've got Thielen, Galladay, Hopkins, Justin Jefferson, and Claypool was like my number 5. So
yeah,
good deal for both of us. I'm shocked he actually accepted the deal.
Yeah, it's still. I mean, it was a good way. Yeah, good
deal for both of us.
Good pull for both. That's indeed. So, we'll jump in real quick and we'll go ahead and start the Week 10 slate. The woos and boos for the week.
We haven't done this in a while, man.
We haven't done this.
Some people.
We haven't done this in a bit. We're we're already looking at. Gosh, we're 40 minutes in right now. Holy shit!
Should we stop the episode and start again?
We're live on Twitter at this point in time too.
Won't that count as them paying us twice?
Uh,
Sorry,
sure.
it's just guys trying to make a buck here, people.
Sure, but obviously at this point in time too, we've not done anything to help these people with covering games in the Week 10 slate.
I think we've done a lot to help them already with trade advice here.
We have from a standpoint of online with our Twitter followers, which we enjoy doing. That's for sure.
Let's dive in.
So we're gonna dive in real quick with the woos and boos. We usually a lot of times we've done these. We've done them during the Thursday night game, so we actually get to talk about the Thursday night game real quick, which is obviously the Indianapolis
Brandon's
Colts.
Tennessee Titans.
Don't start that shit. The Indianapolis Colts visiting the hated Tennessee Titans. That is my hated rival here in state, the Tennessee Titans. Over-under is 48.5, which is showing the Titans giving up 2 points currently. How are you feeling about this game? And let me get your woos and boos in this game real quick.
I'm going to go the Titans as a 3-point victory at home over the Colts there. So I'm going to go Titans, and I'm actually I think it's going to be really – you said 48, right?
Yeah, 48.5. Got the hook on it.
Ooh, good, because you see all these things. It's 48. Okay, well, what if I think it's going to push? No, I'm going to go the under actually in this one. Both teams are a little bit better at defense there. I mean, the Colts are good run D. It's Phillip Rivers too. So my woos for the game. So Derrick Henry is not going to be one of them. Shockingly, the Colts run D is pretty good. So I think this is going to be an AJ Brown, Ryan Tannehill week again this week. My woo for the Colts, provided that Jack Doyle, who's out, I think he's going to be out, and provided Mo Alley Cox is going to be out, this is going to be a good Trey Burton week. So if you need a tight end out there, both of those guys are going to be out. This is going to be a good Trey Burton week. So woo to both those guys. We're booing Derrick Henry. Not that you can bench him, but I just don't think he's going to have a great week this week.
Yeah, no, the DVOA for the Indianapolis Colts is one of the best in the league. So as far as defending the opposing running back. So yeah, Derrick Henry is probably set up for a game in which he's going to give you a stat line of like 22 carries for 48 yards, 57 yards, somewhere along those lines.
Might bounce in the end zone, but he's not going to give you typical Derrick Henry numbers.
Yeah, he's not. So for me, yeah, I'm going to go. I think the Titans squeak it out. I'm not sure this game hits the over. So for me, I'm probably going to take that under with the Titans to win the game. For me, and I'm kind of with you. If we're going to boo Derrick Henry, like we mentioned, the matchup's just not great for him. But if I'm going to woo anybody at all, this has to be a game in which T.Y. Hilton shows up. The Titans secondary. All indications I saw earlier today is he will play on Thursday night. So
he's got to have one good game in 2020, doesn't he?
This seems to be set up for a T.Y. Hilton game in which he finally shows up in the 2020 season. So for me, if you're ever going to play T.Y. Hilton, if he's on your roster, this has to be the week. So plug him in. You might have issues with injuries, might have issues with buys because, we do have the Chiefs on bye. You've got the Cowboys are on bye. You might have a situation where you need that wide receiver 3. I think this is going to be a week where T.Y. Hilton needs to kind of squeak in there right in that wide receiver 3 slot this week and, pray for the best because he's not done anything for fantasy managers up until this point.
Yeah, we're talking about regression to the mean. T.Y. Hilton is on the extreme opposite end of he's due and bound to have a good week at some point, right?
Yeah. I mean, it has to. He has to show up at some point or another. And then I'll jump back in when we get to the woos and boos part of the Bills matchup. Fogelman, we will talk a little bit about Josh Allen. He wants to know about Josh Allen's upcoming playoff schedule, so we'll get to that. Washington at Detroit. The over/under here is 45.5, with Detroit laying 4 points. As the home favorite here. Who you got? What players are we looking at here?
Yeah, I've got the football team is going to cover. I don't think they're going to win. I think it's going to be a 3-point lines victory here. And I would probably – this another game too. I'd probably stick with the under here. I think it's going to be tough. Washington's – both defenses are a little bit better than what you would think. So my woo in this game is going to be. I think Swift is going to be a nice little woo here. I'm going to go Kenny Galladay if he plays. If not, Marvin Jones is going to be the guy again here. I think is going to be a good spot. And I think the biggest woo to come out of this game is probably Antonio Gibson. If he plays,
Stealing my thunder.
Yeah, you're welcome. That you asked me first. If you want to steal the thunder, you can talk first.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I'm the host. I lay it on the table, and we converse about it.
You want me to be the host for a week? I can be the host, so you can steal my thunder.
Well, this thing would fall flat if you were the host of this podcast.
Oh, this thing would be awesome. All right, everybody, put your vote out there. Who do you think would be the better host, Brandon or I? Put your votes out there.
Oh, holy shit!
No, Antonio Gibson, I think is going to be a nice big win. I think, look, you're gonna woo your big players in here. I don't think either of the quarterbacks are going to have amazing games here. So I would probably boo both Alex Smith, who I'm assuming is going to be the starter anyway, and Matthew Stafford. I think it's going to be one of those games that's very even keel. The football team might be a nice little defensive pickup for the week. I think they are prone to get some sacks. If you need a team out there, go pick them up for a bye week fill in there. But I think it's going to be a very ho-hum, very low scoring, like 20 to 24 kind of a game here.
I'm actually going to take Washington to win this game outright and to hit the under here. I think that they're going to do just enough to squeak out a 1 to 2 point victory. But as far as things go, yeah, it's not looking. It's trending towards Galladay won't play. I know he didn't practice today. So if you're looking for a guy, really the only guy that interests me, but on the defensive or the Detroit Lions side of the football when it comes to fantasy options, Swift. As an option, as an RB2 flex option, most often than not, it's going to be a flex option right now. And TJ Hawkinson. And we keep talking about it. Tight end is thin. He's been about as consistent as they come. So he's going to be a guy that I would play at tight end for sure. You cannot take him out of the lineups right now. But for me, biggest woo of the game here in this matchup was going to be Antonio Gibson. I think everything is set up for him to have a great game. J.D. McKissick on a lower end on a PPR setup. If you're in a format with PPR, McKissick's going to give you probably 6-7 catches in this game and have a decent floor, but he's not going to overwhelm you with the production there. So that's who I like in this matchup here. We'll move on to the aforementioned Jacksonville Jaguars going to Green Bay.
Hold on here. I'll do it, B. Jacksonville going to Green Bay. Green Bay getting 13.5. B, what do you think here in this matchup?
Well, let's say you've already started it off on a bad foot because Green Bay's not getting 13.5. They're laying. You said they're getting 13.5.
Giving.
Okay. Yes, sir. He did tell me 13.5, and the over-under is 51.5. I'm going to go with the over in this matchup, and I'm going to go with Green Bay to cover the 13.5 because I don't believe Jacksonville's offense is going to be able to get the job done to close it within 2 touchdowns. I think this is probably a 17 to 20 point victory for Green Bay. As far as the woos and boos in this matchup, oh man, for me, I think I'm going to keep riding the hot hand. I mean, I know that he's probably going to be matched up with Jair Alexander, but DJ Shark, I think it's the classic greasy wheel gets the grease, or the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. So, DJ Shark, they're going to force the ball to him. I think he's about the only option that I really feel confident in this matchup. James Robinson's going to do what James Robinson does. For me, I like Shark. He's a guy that has a little bit of upside as a wide receiver too this week. Green Bay side of the field, it's Aaron Jones week. We saw it last week. They really want. They got him back into the game plan. He had the first 4 or 5 touches in that game against San Francisco. Couldn't get into the end zone, but I think that's going to come this week. He's going to make up for it, and we're going to see a big Aaron Jones week.
Damn it! Wish I would have gone first.
Right.
It's
not easy, is it?
I know. No, I'm gonna be right there with you. I think it's gonna be a Packers and an over week as well. Aaron Jones is easily my biggest woo. I think they're gonna mix him back in, and I think they're really gonna try to establish the run here against Jacksonville. And that's actually my woo on the Jacksonville side. I think it's going to be a James Robinson week. I think they're going to have to try to establish him early if they want to have any hopes of slowing the game down against the Packers. I hope it's a DJ Shark week, but I'm really more feeling Laviska Shenault. I think he's going to be the guy that's going to find the end zone for the Jaguars. And for the Packers on the receiving side, I think Adams may have a good receiving week, but I think this may be one of those to where we see MVS find the end zone again here. So again, I think we're going to see the Packers, again a lot more on their side, and they're going to be both teams they're going to feature the run here on both sides. So that's my woos.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Even though Jacksonville, they're actually, I think, tied for third in the NFL in touchdown passes allowed. So Aaron Rodgers, of course, is going to have a good week. We just mentioned that with a previous question. I think he's in store for a really good week as the QB1 option for sure. But moving on to the next one, we're going to go to Houston at Cleveland.
Houston.
53.5 is the total here, with Cleveland laying 3 points as the home favorite coming off the bye. Nick Chubb back in the fold, practicing, should be good to go for the Browns. Who you got in this matchup? Who's the woo? Who's the boo?
Ooh, I think this is a Browns lock right here to win this game. ESPN's got it 3.5, so I think we're going to go the Browns in the over in this matchup. I think it's going to be for me. I'm trying to think of any offensive guy that I really don't like in this matchup. On the Brown side, I mean, I think Chubb, I think Hunt, I think Landry, I think all three of those guys score this week. I think you're seeing your return back to the Cleveland offense. So, Baker Mayfield, I know I'm starting him in a league. I'm very scared to start him this week in a league, but starting him nonetheless. I've got Matt Ryan on a bye in a league, and I've got Big Ben having COVID, so I almost got to start him here. But I mean, you got a great matchup here, so that's definitely something. I mean, Jake Luton had a great week against them last week. But for the Texans, I think it's one of those. I mean, you start your pass catchers over there. I don't know how much Duke Johnson's going to get done necessarily on the ground, but I think he's going to have some receiving ability. I don't know who I'm booing here. Maybe Rashard Higgins. Maybe a guy to boo in this matchup. Maybe the Texans tight ends or somebody to boo. But I like a lot of the matchups here this week. So over in the Browns for me.
I think if I would boo anybody, it would probably be Duke Johnson. I just don't think he's going to have the chops to get it done in the matchup, even if with an increased workload if David Johnson was out. So I agree with you. I think Cleveland does win this game. And they do cover. I think it hits the over as well. I think it should be a nice back and forth affair. For me, I think it's set up for a big Nick Chubb return this week. Houston has one of the worst defenses and points allowed against opposing running backs. So it should be a big Nick Chubb week. And conversely, you should see a good game out of Kareem Hunt, who's done well in a lesser role supporting Nick Chubb coming out of the backfield.
And he hasn't really been good since Chubb's been out. I mean, another one of those guys, just like Chase Edmonds, he's much better in a support role. So I see both of those guys finding the end zone this week.
Yeah, and for me, I think the biggest woo I'm going to go with in this matchup for the Cleveland Browns, and he's going to be in my article that I'm putting out on Rotoballer here come Friday, Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper set up for a really good week. Coming back to full health, should see a plenty of targets now with Odell Beckham Jr. out for the season. You're going to see Hooper be the guy that's going to be relied on as more of that constant, that number 2 option behind Landry in this offense. So I really like Hooper in this matchup here. He's going to probably be my woo in this game here. Now we'll switch it up. Go to the next game. And that's going to be Philadelphia at the New York Giants. Battle of the NFC least. 45.5 point total with the Eagles laying 3.5 as the road favorite. Who you got here in this matchup? The players to look for.
I mean, the Eagles have got most of their guys coming back this week. I think it's a nice spot for them. But I'm going to go with the Giants. I think I don't think the Giants are going to win this game, but I think it's going to be one of those 3-point wins by the Eagles there. So we're going to go. What did you say over under?
Let me pull it back up real quick. Over under on this game 45.5 total.
We're going to the over, but barely. I think we're going to see a nice 28-25-ish kind of game here.
Yeah, I think it hits 50. I agree with you.
Yeah. So biggest woos, I think Carson Wentz is a nice big woo here this week. The Eagles offense, I think, has the bones to get it done. But really, I'm wooing more Wentz and Miles Sanders if he plays. I think Wentz is going to spread the ball around, or it's kind of hard to woo one particular wide receiver. I mean, you got Wentz coming back, you got Rager, Dallas Goedert is back. You're going to have some receiving options, so I think he's going to more spread around to where there's not necessarily a receiver I want out there. I think for the Giants, if Devontae Freeman does not play, Wayne Gallman is a woo. But if Freeman's there, I think they're both going to kind of split touches is the way that things have, unfortunately, for some of my teams, been leaning toward. I think the biggest woo on the Giants is probably Golden Tate. I feel like he's coming back. I feel like he's clamoring for the ball. They held him out last week because he was bitching wanting the ball there. Sorry, eighth graders. But no, I think Golden Tate is going to be the guy, and I think Daniel Jones is in a nice spot to be able to chuck the ball around a little bit. I think the Eagles D is probably going to be in a nice spot too, but Jones is going to have to chuck the ball around, so I think you're going to see some rushing yards out of him, and he's going to be a nice, probably bye-week fill-in. So,
yeah, I agree.
And Evan Ingram, I think you got to call. I think he's going to have a good week, but Slayton, I don't think is going to have a good week. Shepard, I don't see having a good week either. So, and I probably wouldn't start. I've got Alshon Jeffrey. I'm probably not starting Alshon Jeffrey's first week back here.
No, I agree. I think Philadelphia wins this and and cover, or they cover their spread, but we're going to hit the over on the total. For me, biggest woo in this game, I think it's going to have to be Evan Ingram. You brought him up. Philadelphia is actually one of the worst in fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends. So Evan Ingram is a must start this week. He kind of is in that mix of a lot of those tight ends that are kind of murky and you don't know what you're getting on a week-to-week basis. So for me, you're definitely plugging him in. I mentioned Miles Sanders. I think he's in store for a really good week coming back after missing some time. So I'm going with that there as well. And you mentioned Carson Wentz. I think he's a good play. We're starting to see as the offense around him is getting more and more healthy. He's starting to improve as a quarterback as well.
Look at their schedule. This is a good point to bring this up. Look at the Eagles' schedule down the stretch, man. He has some smash spots, and with the way he's done, you might be able to get him cheap out there. Now's a good week to be able to trade for Carson Wentz and make some offers out there because he could be a championship winning quarterback with all these guys, and Zach Ertz probably back next week. So
yeah, I think Wentz has Green Bay in Week 13. That's the toughest matchup for the remainder of the season. I mean, he's looking at the trio in the fantasy playoff time. He's got New Orleans at home. They're going to Arizona in a back and forth affair, and then the horrible Dallas defense in championship week. So, Wentz is a guy that could win you a fantasy championship if he's on your roster and you can make it that far. It is the battle of attrition. So, of course, if Carson Wentz gets you to the fantasy playoffs, he could win you the fantasy playoffs. So I agree with that take there. So going to Tampa Bay at Carolina, got the 50.5 total with a 4.5 over under, or with a 4.5. Tampa is laying as a road favorite. We saw Tampa Bay get embarrassed this last week by the Saints. Bounce back week for those Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I would assume, correct?
Bounce back for Tampa. Yeah, they're bouncing back. I think they're going to win this one by a touchdown here, and I think we're going to go to the over. It's really hard not to woo Tom Brady on this matchup here. I think he's coming in. I think they're going to absolutely chuck the ball around like crazy. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to boo both of the Bucs running backs. I mean, it's still embarrassing to me that they weren't able to get more touches than what they got. Grant, I know they were down really quick, But I think if I'm gonna start either one of these two, it's probably gonna be Leonard Fournette this week. It just seems to be the kind of a matchup where if he's gonna do something, he would be the one out of the two. But honestly, I'm gonna boo both of them. So the big question is for the Bucs, who catches the touchdowns here? Um, this feels like a Chris Godwin kind of a week. So that's probably who I'm gonna woo in this matchup for Tampa.
Yep.
And the Panthers, man, Bridgewater. I hate to say it, Bridgewater's done well. I mean, he's mixing and matching the ball up out there. He has, and just for the regression factor, I think this is for me is probably gonna be a Robbie Anderson kind of a week here. So those are the guys that I'm wooing out of this matchup. I don't know that I necessarily want to. I definitely actually my boo is probably going to be Mike Davis. Despite well, but here's why. I mean, despite the really shitty week that they had. The Saints didn't run the ball very efficiently this last week, so I think Mike Davis is going to have a rough week.
No, I agree with you. It was definitely a down week there, for sure, with how Tampa Bay played and how Carolina were, and there's so many different variables to go with there, but. I agree with you. For me, I think Tampa's going to cover in the matchup. I think we're going to hit the over between these two. So I go with that as well. But for me, I agree. The boo for the week for me is going to be Mike Davis. That's kind of an obvious. That's an obvious one to go with. But if you want a sleeper pick for the week, a guy to kind of target with me booing Mike Davis, Curtis Samuel's a guy that you can probably go ahead. You can actually go and grab and pick up at this point in time. He could be a sleeper in this matchup. We see him getting increased workload in that backfield, and getting used a little bit more. So he could be kind of a sneaky guy to get into your lineups there. But from the Woo perspective, yeah, I'm with you. I agree that Chris Godwin's a guy to look for in the Tampa Bay offense this week. I think he has a good performance. So for me, those are kind of the players to target there with that matchup as well. Going to Denver at Las Vegas. Total in the game is 52 with the over with Las Vegas actually laying 5 in this matchup.
No, I'm going to Denver this week.
Yeah, you actually are going to Denver. That's a good point. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice spot actually for the Raiders. The Broncos have been playing well, but the Raiders at home have done pretty well. I think it's going to be a nice matchup for them and their offense. So I think it's going to be the Raiders, and I think we're going to go the over here.
Who you got? Who's your plays to watch for in this game here?
Yeah, I mean this feels like a Josh Jacobs week here, so I'm gonna woo Josh Jacobs, and I also think too Henry Ruggs is going to be in a nice little spot where he can come out and do something this week. So that's my woos. Man, I wooed so hard last week for Jerry Jeudy and was right, and I felt so good about Noah Fant last week and that first freaking catch he had for 30-something yards and he hurt his ankle. But I think it's going to be another Jerry Jeudy kind of a week this week here with Noah Fant mixed in. I think there's going to be the two guys. We talked about him a little bit earlier. I don't necessarily love Phillip Lindsay, but I think he might find the end zone and get a little bit more than what Melvin Gordon is. Melvin Gordon's a boo for me this week. Until I see him come back and do something, I really don't want any part of him. And unfortunately, I would like to think that Darren Waller would have a good week, but I just don't feel Darren Waller this week. So I'm going to boo Darren Waller.
Booing Darren Waller. That's a bold prediction there.
You got to be bold when you're in fantasy football, my man.
Yeah. So for me, I'm kind of right there with you with the backfield for the Denver Broncos. I think you can play either. Both are set up for some good matchups this week. But if I want to boo anybody in this game, I think I want to boo Nelson Aguilar. It's kind of
down the end zone last week.
Long shot play. 13 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. If you take out that aberrational game in Cleveland with the horrible wins that were in that one
him that week, I had to.
Yeah, so if you take that one out, I mean, he's a guy that you're kind of playing consistently week in and week out. So I have no issues in plugging in Nelson Aguilar this week. I'm definitely wooing him in this matchup because I expect him to play well and continue the trend. So play him.
What? Let me ask you this, because I picked him up in a couple leagues. What are your thoughts on KJ Hamler?
I like him moving forward, but the issue is that a healthy Tim Patrick and a healthy Jerry Jeudy are really the focal points of the passing attack, along with, of course, Noah Fant. So what's really going to be there from a target share standpoint for KJ Hamler? It's going to be kind of a low. Is he a guy that you can kind of pick up and stash? I'd rather have him in a keeper, a dynasty format than I would in a redraft. So that's how I kind of view KJ Hamler moving forward. Moving on, we'll go to Buffalo at Arizona. Total in the game is 56. Arizona with a -1.5 that they are giving up in this matchup. Who you got? Who's the players to watch for?
I don't know why, but I'm feeling under in this game. I just feel like it's one of those matchups you think that the team should be going for like 30 points apiece, and I feel like they're going to go for more like 20-something points apiece, to where this is going to be under. But I think the Bills are gonna actually win this one outright and go into the desert and get a dub by like 3 points here. So probably my biggest woos in this matchup, I think this is going to be a comeback week here for D-Hop. Tre'Davious White got absolutely nailed last week with DK Metcalf there. He got embarrassed for the first time all year. I think that continues here this week. So D-Hop and Kyler Murray, I think, are going to have nice weeks. I think for Murray, it's more going to happen on the ground a little bit in this matchup here. And the Bills, especially since you liked him last week and he didn't do so much, I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs. I think he's going to be my woo, because if Brandon says somebody and he's on somebody and they don't have a good week, chances are the next week they're going to do something there. So yeah, I think both quarterbacks here, I don't necessarily love the run game in either situation there. Although if I had to pick one guy to woo, it would probably be Zach Moss. I think he's going to find the end zone. He's starting to see a little bit more of a timeshare in that offense. So he would probably be the one woo that I would have. And I'd be remiss. I mean, I think my boy Christian Kirk, he started to look really good here of late. So, I think he's going to have a nice week. You can boo both tight ends on both sides. They're not going to have good matchups here. I think your secondary receivers for the Bills are not going to have good matchups here. And again, I think this is so much more of a timeshare split with the Cardinals right now that it's hard for me to woo either one of these guys in the Cardinals backfield. So what say you, B?
For me, I think obviously you're going to play both quarterbacks with utmost confidence. The back and forth affair that this game should be, that it's shaping up to be. Stephon Diggs last week, actually, I mean, he didn't have a bad week in terms of
just didn't find the end zone.
Just didn't find the end zone. That was the downside of it. But he should bounce back again this week. He'll be the focal point in that passing attack. I think he gets in the end zone this week. So he's definitely a guy that I'm going to be wooing here. I'm like you. I don't feel great about either running game in this matchup because, let's face it, I mean, you're the most dangerous runner we're going to see on the field for either one of these two teams is going to be their quarterback breaking out of the backfield. So that's how I'm looking at that. But outside of that, I mean, really, if you look at the options, Christian Kirk, I mean, playing hot hand, I think he's been like the wide receiver 8 in fantasy over the course of the last month. So keep playing him. I mean, for me, I think he's going to be a guy that you're going to want to woo this week as well. Christian Kirk's playing with the hot hand. Keep him in your lineups until he just shows you otherwise. So that's, for me, I would stay on Christian Kirk. How do you feel about Christian Kirk?
I love Christian Kirk. I've got him in a number of leagues here. I mean, he's my like number 3/flex/bench guy, but his matchups are just so good. I mean, you look at what the Bills secondary gave up to Seattle this last week. Granted, they picked off Russell Wilson twice, but they're like Swiss cheese out there. And you got these receivers. I mean, I think the Cardinals are going to throw the ball. Again, I'm seeing a lot more field goals in this than I am. I mean, I think Kirk and Hopkins are going to have nice games, but in the fact of them just going crazy in 30 and 40 points, I just don't necessarily see that with the Bills, traveling west. Wagons ho.
So we kind of dialing back into it. Josh
Oh yeah,
Allen
you said had some Josh Allen question, right?
yeah, wants to know about your confidence level in Josh Allen moving forward. With the tough schedule that he's got on the plate, for playoff time.
Let's go look at the schedule here.
Yeah,
So
so he's got Arizona this week. They're on bye, then they've got the Chargers. So those are
Okay.
two good matchups.
Good so far.
But then we get into playoff time and around fantasy, it starts to tighten up a little bit. San Francisco, they've been a little bit worse as of late, but overall they're usually pretty tough against the pass. But then you've got Pittsburgh, which is a horrible matchup. Denver in week 15 on the road. You don't really know how that's going to work out, even though
especially you got to be worried about the weather. In Denver.
Could be a weather situation, and then you got New England.
Could be a weather situation in Buffalo too, but
yeah, New England in week 16. So New England's not the defense we once thought they were. So
Joe Flacco threw for 3 touchdowns against them.
Yep. So
Joe Flacco.
Confidence-wise, I feel good about him moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know necessarily in the Pittsburgh matchup. I want a good matchup to where I can plug somebody in potentially in there. But I think the one good thing with Josh Allen, where you don't have with some of these other drop back quarterbacks like you've got with a Carson Wentz, is Allen's got that running ability there, and I think that's what saves him some weeks. So I don't have a problem with Josh Allen. I think he's almost fairly matchup proof. These days, I've got in one of the bigger leagues that Brandon and I do, I've got Josh Allen and Carson Wentz, and he had a rough game, those 2 weeks, and luckily I was playing Wentz in there. So this is one of those tough weeks, I think, though, for Allen. I think depending on who your backup is, I'm not as confident as Brandon is about him this week. I think it may be like a 2-touchdown kind of a game because I think Moss and or Singletary may find the end zone too, to where it kind of limits his potential. I mean, 2 touchdowns is not a horrible game, but I want a 3 or 4 touchdown week if I really want to be confident about starting somebody. So this may be a week, again, with them going west, that I may consider starting somebody else. But that's my take on him. But going forward, great quarterback. You definitely want to have him.
Yeah, I agree with you there. We'll move on. Go to the Los Angeles Chargers visiting the Miami Dolphins. 48 is the total here. Dolphins giving up the 2.5 points. Battle of the rookie quarterbacks. Who you got in this game, and who's the players you like?
Woo! It's Los Angeles Superchargers. Hold on. I backed out of my thing there. I remember seeing that I picked the Dolphins here, so I know I'm going to go the Dolphins. Tua looking nice last week, so yeah. I think in a home matchup again. I'm just not a fan of teams traveling cross country. You saw it with Seattle last week. Even though some of the guys had a good matchup, at least in terms of win-loss, they usually don't do very well when they're traveling cross country like that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go the Dolphins, and I think I'm going to go the over here. Even though the Dolphins' defense has been coming up pretty clutch here of late and getting some defensive touchdowns, they're still allowing the points. So Dolphins and the over on this one.
Yeah, I think I agree. The defense has been playing well for the Dolphins here lately. I think we're going to hit the over just slightly in this game, but the Dolphins will win by at least a field goal, so they're going to cover that 2.5. So
yeah. Tough news with Preston Williams going on the IR here. That was some rough news. So I think with that, huge uptick for Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki. I think you saw Mike Gesicki start to get a little bit more involved in the passing game finally this last week. So I think Gesicki is another guy. I think those guys, the non-running backs, are I'm going to woo for the Dolphins. Chargers. I think this is Keenan Allen's going to be tough pressed here with some of the Dolphin secondary guys. So for me with the Chargers, if Kalen Ballage is the guy, or if Justin Jackson is the guy, whoever that main guy running back for the Chargers is going to be a nice woo. And I think Mike Williams is going to be a woo here for me as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a good week to play Mike Williams because he's going to draw the secondary coverage. But I think this is a week, like if you're in a pinch and you've got like Patrick Mahomes as your QB1 and you're looking for a guy to play this week, I think Tua is a guy that you can plug in and play this week because the matchup presents it as a solid a solid situation for him to get into your lineups. He seems to be gaining confidence. So, if you need that plug-in fill-in guy this week, too, is not going to be a bad option. So,
and Justin Herbert's probably in a good situation too. I mean, I think he's going to have another 3-touchdown game. I mean,
should be a good back and forth affair with the quarterbacks.
He's been a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah. So I don't.
Brandon.
I ain't going to get an argument out of me. I like the kid.
By the way, since Big Ben's out this week, if you want to trade for him in the Experts League, he's available.
He's not out this week. They said he's going to play. He's just on the COVID list.
Well, he's on the COVID watch list.
Yeah, he had close contact with Vance McDonald. He's going to play. Same situation with Stafford last week, and Stafford played. So, I have no qualms there, no issues on playing him. But anyways,
if you want a better quarterback, you know how to come see.
Jesus Christ. Oh, man. So we'll move on to the next game. San Francisco at New Orleans. We've got New Orleans giving up 9 points here with a total of 50. We'll try to blow through these next ones a little bit quicker. We've been on for a pretty good bit, so we need to lightning round these and wrap it up.
You're not going to give the viewers a little more of us, and since we're not going to, well, I'm not going to be on the Sunday show anyway. But
exactly.
Okay, anyway, I digress. We're gonna go. I'm really tempted to go the Niners here in a regression to the mean game, but I'm gonna go Saints by 10 here. So we're gonna go Saints, and we're gonna go the over on this one. So humongous woo on the comeback to Alvin Kamara this week. This should be a nice Alvin Kamara game, but I think an even bigger woo in this matchup. This is going to be the week you want Michael Thomas out there. 5 for 51 this last week. This is definitely going to be a spot that I want him. For the Niners, I think it should be a nice Brandon Ayuk matchup. I think we're going to have Deebo Samuel coming back. You would presume that Deebo Samuel is going to be locked up on Marshawn Lattimore. So I'm going to go with Brandon Ayuk that's going to be my woo this week for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a big Kamara week there as well. We've already got the Raheem Mostert being declared out situation for the 49ers, which is awfully fast. I was thinking we're going to let that one play out, but I do think New Orleans covers here. I think we barely hit the over in this matchup as well. So San Francisco side of the ball, if you're going to play with anybody with confidence, it's going to be Jerick McKinnon. I don't want to touch the backfield per se, but I think you're going to kind of go with his workload, playing from behind, catching passes out of the backfield.
I think I saw Tevin Coleman's questionable.
Yeah, which I wouldn't trust that either. But
he's going to mix in
Brandon Ayuk. So I mean, I'm right there with you on Ayuk. I think they're going to have some kind of an option, somebody catching the ball, as they trail in this game. So I agree with that. One of the bigger matchups on the weekend, you got Seattle going to Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are actually giving up a home favorite of 1.5 in this game. 55.5 is the over. What's your outlook here?
I think the Sea Chickens are going to win here, and we're going to go the over. I'm really more trying to figure out if there's anybody I want to boo in this matchup. I think both teams are going to be in the 30s.
Higbee. Tyler Higbee. We're going to boo him.
Higbee.
Tyler Higbee, we're booing him.
I almost might have to disagree with you, brother. I think Higbee hadn't done crap since week 2. But I think this could be the week that he comes through here. So you got Cooper Kupp with a little bit of a wrist issue. So I'm assuming he's going to play.
Yeah.
I think you want one of these two quarterbacks here. I just don't know if I want to trust Jared Goff, but I really don't want to trust the running backs in this situation. On either side, I think this is going to be a smash matchup for both passing teams here. So wooing the passing offenses, the quarterbacks here, and booing the run.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you. This is a setup. This is a big week for Jared Goff. I'm wooing him. We saw it last week. If you're going to play, if anybody's going to score against Seattle, it's going to be from a passing standpoint. So keep playing your quarterbacks against the Sea Chickens. I think they win this game. I think we hit the over. It's just going to be a shootout between these two teams. We did see earlier today, I think Darrell Henderson did not practice, opens the door a little bit for Malcolm Brown, but what I really hope is it opens the door for Cam Akers. We all need to see that.
It's like the Rams hate him or something.
Something's going on there. It has to be. But really outside of that, I mean, like I said, I don't feel good about Tyler Higbee, but then if you really look at elsewhere on either side of the ball, I mean, I think this is a situation you're starting your options if you got them. Yeah,
Yeah,
both receivers for the Seahawks, both receivers for the Rams. You're playing the running backs. Chris Carson should be coming back. He should be good.
I think the biggest question, who should be the smash spot in a DFS lineup? And I think my logic was sound last week in wanting to start Tyler Lockett over DK Metcalf with Tre'Davious White. So you figure with Jalen Ramsey here and probably going to be on DK, you figure this could be a Tyler Lockett matchup again here.
Should
but
be.
What do you think?
I'm actually shied away from DK this week playing against Jalen Ramsey because Ramsey can be a little bit more physical with DK Metcalf. The Rams, I think they've given up a little bit more in terms of what they allow to slot receivers than they do with receivers on the outside. So for me, that gives me a little bit more lean towards Tyler Lockett if I'm looking at it from a DFS standpoint. That's how I view that one there. We'll get down to these last three here real quick. You got Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, 47.5 is the over. Pittsburgh laying 7.5 here. I'll go ahead and name off the last two as well. We'll just kind of pick them out real fast. Baltimore at New England. Baltimore giving up 7 points with 43.5 over under. And then finally, Minnesota giving up 2.5 points on the road against your Bears with a 45-point total. Who you got in those games? And then out of those three, let's point out some players real fast as we wrap this up.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are actually going to cover on this one here. So I'm going to go the Bengals and the over in that game. My biggest woo is going to be James Conner, especially after a down week last week. I think he's going to have a nice week this week. My biggest boo is going to be whoever the Bengals running back decides to be is going to be my biggest boo in that matchup. Patriots Ravens. My biggest shock of the week. The Patriots are going to win this one outright at home against the Ravens on Sunday night. So my biggest woo in this is going to be Cam Newton. I don't know why. I agree. I think it's going to be a low scoring affair. So I think the Pats and the under in this matchup. So Cam Newton is my biggest woo. My biggest boo is every Ravens receiver or tight end is going to have an absolutely crappy game. It's going to be smash mouth kind of a game for me. So that's what I think. And then my Bears on Monday Night Football are going to pull out this dub outright against the Vikings at home. The Vikings do not play very well at Soldier Field. So my biggest woo in that matchup is going to be Allen Robinson and Dalvin Cook is going to have a decent, not great week because he should actually probably hit 80, 90 yards and find the end zone. The Vikings receivers, though, it's going to be very questionable. Well, I'm going to boo whoever the Bears running back is. They're not going to have a good week here because I think they're going to try to chuck the ball. But it's going to be tough to pick a Vikings receiver because I think most of them are going to be in like the 50 to 60-yard range between Thielen and Jefferson. I just don't know that any of them find the end zone. So those are my rundown on all three here.
With my rundown real quick, my rundown, I agree with you that Cincinnati covers the 7.5.
What?
Yeah, I do. And I think that hits the over as well. So we're right there together. Baltimore, I think in a bounce back week, blows out New England, covers the 7 points. I think we're gonna hit the over just because it's so low at 43.5. And then on Monday night, as much as I hate to say it, I kind of agree with you. I think the Bears pull out the win at home, but not going to hit the over. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game.
Sorry, I meant to mention that under.
Yeah. So that's my rundown on those three. One woo from each game if I want to point it out. I think I'm going to woo James Conner in a bounce-back game for the Steelers. Cincinnati, though, I think you're going to play pretty much any option you got there. I think their receivers are going to be solid this week as well there. Baltimore, biggest woo there is going to be Lamar Jackson. I think this is going to be a week where he starts to kind of rekindle that fire and come back to be a top 5 quarterback in fantasy. We're going to kind of start to see a little bit of a turnaround in that offense, and I think it starts this week. And then Minnesota, Chicago, I'm right there with you. I think it's a big Allen Robinson week. I'm gonna boo Adam Thielen though because we keep mentioning it. The Bears are just absolutely tough against opposing wide receivers. We saw last week AJ Brown was an exception to the rule just because it's AJ
I mean, he
Brown.
caught one deep pass on a very lucky toss for a touchdown. I'm still so pissed off he didn't go down at the one to give Derrick Henry a score.
Exactly. So that's how I'm going to view those there. As we kind of wrap things up, we're getting close to an hour and a half. I didn't mean to kind of really take it as long as it has gone. So
I'm free tonight.
I might actually get back on here sometime the next night or two. Might be more Friday night. Might talk a little bit of DFS, but that might be Sam's co-host.
We're gonna get Mr. Charisma on there.
No, I doubt I can be able to pull the trigger and get him on. But he did send in a list of his top plays for DFS. So, yeah. So there's a teaser.
That's called a teaser.
That's a teaser that we'll lay out there for you guys, and I might get on here and do a little DFS coverage on Friday after I've kind of put together some lineups and things like that too as well. So be on the lookout for that. But until then, any other tidbits you want to throw out there before we put a wrap on this?
Nothing. If we hadn't said it already in an hour and a half, I don't think we're going to say it. So good luck. Make some deals. If you're deep in a position like our boy was earlier with Rodgers and Watson, make some deals, strengthen yourself for the playoffs there.
There you go.
You want to be the guy getting the one player in a 2-for-1 deal. So keep that in mind.
There you go. Yeah, definitely throw out your deals. That trade deadline's coming up. You should be rounding out your starters for the fantasy playoff drive. So definitely do that. But until then, the co-host there, as you can see on the screen, but tell them where they can find you on Twitter.
Yeah, you can find me at the Real FF Goat.
And of course, I am the Roto Superstar as well. We are at woo_fantasy on Twitter as well. Send us questions at any one of the handles that we have that we just presented to you. But as well as always,
send your trade
bottom of the screen. Yeah, send anything into us. But like on the bottom of the screen here, we got go to rotoballer.com. Hit up rollerballer.com with the Woo Fantasy promo code. Get access to all the great premium content that we've got over there at the website. But until then,
Masters and Thursday Night Football tomorrow night.
It's rolling up. It's time to go. And until then, we'll be back with another episode of Woo Fantasy. See you.